Chapter 10. Chapter 10, Resistance Training Concepts. Part 1. Objectives. Describe the role of resistance training in improving sports performance. Describe various training principles and their role in program design. Identify the stages of the general adaptation syndrome. Describe various resistance training systems. Identify appropriate resistance training exercises in alignment with the OPT model. Introduction. Training principles. There are several important strength training principles, including specificity, overload, variation, individualization, and adaptation. Training principles. I'm gonna fucking do this up. The principle of specificity. The said principle. The principle of specificity is often referred to as the said principle, which stands for specific adaptation to impose demands. This means the body will undergo specific adaptations to the specific type of demand placed on it. For example, if an athlete trains by lifting heavy weights, the primary adaptation will support higher levels of maximal strength. If an athlete trains by lifting lighter weights for many repetitions, the primary adaptations will support higher levels of local muscle endurance. This is a fairly simple concept to understand that implies, in essence, the individual gets what he or she trains for. However, the said principle is often used out of context and can be misleading. There are many different tissues in the body that each respond to different stimulus to achieve specific goals. The said principle must be used appropriately within the context of the OPT model that progresses the program through a series of logical steps. It should not be used as a justification to skip progressions through the model, as this can lead to potential injury and athletic breakdown. The body must progress through stages of adaptation to ensure all the necessary tissues are developed properly to meet the desired goal. Connective tissue adapts much more slowly than muscle and must be strong in order for muscles to generate high levels of tension. If emphasis is placed on training muscles to get big and strong, in absence of prior to training that allows connective tissue to increase its strength, will increase the risk of injury. Connective tissues are probably tendons and ligaments. Type 1 muscle fibers, which are vitally important for postural stabilization, function differently than type 2 muscle fibers. In order to train with higher intensities, proper postural stabilization is necessity. Therefore, both fiber types need to be trained specifically to prepare them to support higher levels of training. This is the primary purpose behind the three main outcomes of training within the OPT model. The degree of adaptation that occurs during training is directly related to mechanical, neuromuscular, and metabolic specificity of the program. In other words, the more specifically a sports performance professional manipulates the exercise routine to meet the actual goal, the greater the specific carryover the training program will have on the goal. The body can only adapt if it has reason to adapt. Mechanical specificity. Mechanical specificity refers to the weight and movements required of the body. To develop endurance in the legs, light weights must be used over many repetitions of leg exercises. To develop maximal strength in the chest, heavy weights must be used during chest-related exercises. That was mechanical specificity. Neuromuscular specificity refers to the speed of contraction and exercise selection. To develop higher levels of power in the legs, low weight at high velocity of contraction must be performed in a plyometric manner, such as those seen in plyometric training. Citation Nyland examined muscle activation and coordination patterns through electromyography measurement during a kicking motion following progressive resistance training. The testing group demonstrated a change to early muscle activation, early peak ground reaction force, and improved quickness. These results suggest that resistance training may influence motor control. These results suggest that resistance training may influence motor coordination, which may aid in improvement of sport skills. This means that resistance training may directly enhance speed, agility, and quickness, and reinforces the importance of each part of integrated training to overall athletic development. To develop higher levels of stability while pushing, chest exercises will need to be performed using controlled, unstable exercises at slower speeds. An example would be single leg tubing row. Metabolic specificity refers to the metabolic route needed to supply energy quickly for a specific exercise. To develop endurance, training will require prolonged bouts of exercise with minimal rest periods between sets that produce energy through the aerobic pathways. To develop maximal strength or power, training will require longer rest periods, so the intensity of each bout of exercise remains high. Energy will be supplied via the anaerobic pathways. The principle of overload. The principle of overload involves providing the appropriate training stimulus to elicit optimal physical, physiological, and performance adaptations. A tissue will adapt under stimulus. The tissue needs the overload, or it will not adapt. A well-designed resistance training program imposes demands that force progressive adaptations. The human movement system responds to the imposed demands incurred during training, the said principle, with specific adaptations. This can occur through manipulation of volume, repetitions, and sets, intensity, contraction, velocity, muscle action, rest interval, training frequency, plane of motion, exercise selection, sensory motor challenge, and exercise order. Blue boxes. Pro tip: intramuscular coordination versus intermuscular coordination. Intramuscular coordination is the ability of the neuromuscular system to allow optimum levels of motor unit recruitment and motor unit synchronization within a single muscle using single joint exercises. Examples: leg extension, leg curls. Intermuscular coordination. muscular coordination is the ability of the neuromuscular system to allow all muscles to work together using multiple joint exercises. Example, squats and lunges. The sports performance professional needs to work on the development of both types of muscular coordination for athletes to reach peak performance potential. Planned variations. The principle of variation. Planned variations in a resistance training program are essential to enable continuous adaptations over a training period while preventing injury. Periodized resistance training programs lead to superior physical, physiological, and performance improvements when compared to a non-periodized training program. Specific combinations of volume and intensity produce specific training adaptations. High volume equals cellular hypertrophic changes. High intensity equals neural adaptations. A planned training program with progressive and systematic variation produces long-term consistent adaptations and prevents overtraining. Page 341. The principle of individualization. The principle of individualization. It is important to consider the athlete's age, general medical history, injury history, training background, work capacity, recoverability, structural integrity, training needs or goals, and sport. Each athlete will respond to a program designed specifically to address the individual's specific needs or goals. Principle of adaptation. One of the many unique qualities of the human body is its ability to adapt or adjust its functional capacity to meet the desired needs. This is perhaps the root of all training and conditioning. The desire to seek an adaptation is the driving force behind most athletes in training programs. Adaptive benefits from resistant training. It's a box, a table. Physiological, improved cardiovascular efficiency. Beneficial to the endocrine and serum lipid regulation. Increased bone density. Increased lean body mass. Decreased body fat. Increased metabolic efficiency. Decreased physiological stress. That's the physiological. The performance benefits. Increased tissue tensile strength. Increased power. Increased endurance.